Hello students and welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Shafali Nagpal, Associate Professor at Human Resource Development Center, Bhagat Phool Singh Mahila Vishwavidyalaya, Sonipat. Let us start with the paper Development of the Management Thoughts, Principles and Types under the paper Human Resource Management. Let us start with the module Evolution of Management Thoughts. After completing this module, you will be able firstly to understand the concept of evolution of management thoughts, another to know the impact of management thoughts, thirdly to analyze the prevailing procedure of management thoughts in the industries. Let us begin with the introduction of this concept. Management is studied in business academics since earlier times, and it is considered as an integral part of understanding business operations. People have been changing and redesigning organizations for centuries. Though the 20th century is noticeable in the history as an era of scientific management, still it does not indicate that management tactics were not present in the past years. Many studies indicated that management theory evolved with the scientific and the bureaucratic management that used measurement, procedures, routines as the basis of all operations. Firms developed the hierarchies to apply standardized rules to the place of work and penalize the labor for violating rules. With the human relation movement, companies emphasize the individual workers. Modern management theories include system theory, contingency theory, chaos theory, focus theory on the whole organization with employee as a key part of the system. The evolution of the management can be categorized into the different parts. Firstly, we can divide it as pre-scientific management era, which was before year 1880. The next categorization is of classical management era, which is considered from 1880 to 1930. Third classification is of neoclassical management era from 1930 to 1950, and the modern management era, which began from 1950 and onwards. Classical management includes scientific management school, administration management school, bureaucracy management. Neoclassical management include human relations schools and behavioral management school. Modern management include social system school, decision theory school, quantitative management school, system management school and contingency management school. As we can see, that evolution of management thoughts is divided into 4 eras. One is pre-scientific management era, which was before the year 1880, and the classical management era, which was between 1880 to 1930. Then neoclassical management between the year 1930 to 1950, and the modern management era 1950 and above. Let us see the early management thought. The period of 1700 to 1800 emphasizes the industrial revolution, and the factory system highlights the industrial revolution and the importance of the direction as a managerial purpose. Thus, the development of the management theory can be recognized as the way people have struggled with relationship at particular time in olden periods. Many economic theorists during this period described the notion of management. Adam Smith and James Watt have been recognized as the two theorists who launched the world towards the industrialization. Adam Smith brought about the revolution in the financial thought, and James Watt steam engine provided the cheaper power that revolutionized English commerce and industry. Both provided the base for the modern concept of business management theory and practice. Adam Smith explained the concept of division of labor, and Torgot described the importance of the direction and the control. Smith stated that the market and competition should be the controllers of economic activity and that the tax policies were destructive. The specialization of labor was the basis of Smith's theory. According to the Smith, the division of labor provided managers with the maximum opportunity for the improved output. From the year 1771 to 1858, Robert studied for concern of the workers. He was repulsed by the working conditions and poor treatment of the workers in the factories across the Scotland. Owen became the reformer. He reduced the use of the child labor and used ethical influence rather than physical punishment in his factories. He reapproached his fellow factory owners for treating their equipments better than they treated their workers. In the quantitative approach of early management thought, Charles Babbage, whose era is defined between 1792 to 1871, is recognized as the supporter of the operation research and management science. Babbage scientific innovations are as a mechanical calculator, versatile computer, and punch card machine. His project never became a commercial reality. However, Babbage is considered to be the creator of the concepts behind the present-day computers. The most popular book of Babbage, On the Economy of Machinery and Manufacturers, described the tools and machinery used in the English factories. It is discussed the economic principles of manufacturing and analyzed the operation and the skills used and suggest improved practices. Babbage considered in the benefits of the division of labor and was a supporter of profit sharing. He developed a method of observing manufacturing that is the same approach utilized today by operations analysts and consultants, analyzing the manufacturing operations. The other theorists who contributed to the quantitative approach to the early management were Robert Owen, Andrew, and Charles Duplin. Let us study the classical approach. The classical approach is the earliest thought of the management. The classical approach was associated with the ways to manage the work and organizations more efficiently. The classical approach is categorized into three groups, that is, scientific management, administrative management, and bureaucratic management. The scientific management, which is also referred to as Taylorism or the Taylor system, it is a theory of the management that evaluates and synthesizes workflows within the aim of improving the labor productivity. In other words, we can say the conventional rules of thumbs are substituted by the accurate procedures developed after the careful study of the individual at work. Universal approaches to the scientific management are developed for efficiency of the workers. Standardizations of the job, roles, activity, and discipline, the role of the manager, and in the business hierarchy. The scientific management theory had an enormous impact on the business industry at the beginning of the 20th century. Many big and victorious organizations such as McDonald's, hamburger chain, or the call centers utilize the modern version of the scientific management. Among the famous theorists, Taylor's contribution in the era of scientific management is invaluable. The component of the scientific management are a determination of the task, planning, proper selection and training of the workers, improvement in the methods, modification of the organization, and the mental revolution such as job specialization. As a result, it became more concerned with the physical things than towards the people, even though increased the output. Scientific management focuses on the workers and machines relationships. Organizational productivity can be increased by enhancing the competence of the production process. The Taylor's scientific management contribution was in the academic records. They indicate that the Taylor and his colleagues, they developed the first systematic study in management. He initiated an innovative movement in 1910 which is identified as scientific management. Frederick Taylor is known as the father of the scientific management, and he published the principles of scientific management which he proposed work method designed to boost the workers' productivity. The Taylor asserted that to succeed in these principles, it is necessary to transform the part of management and labor completely. His philosophy was based on some principles. The first principle is the separation of planning and doing. In the pre-Taylor era, an employee himself used to choose or plan how he had to do his work and what machines and equipments would be necessary to perform the work. But Taylor divided the two functions of planning and doing. He stressed that planning should be delegated to specialists. The second principle of Taylor's management approach is functional foremanship. The Taylor launched functional foremanship for administration and direction. Under 8-boss scheme of functional foremanship, the 4 persons like route clerk, instruction card clerk, time and cost clerk, disciplinarian are associated with planning functions, and remaining 4 speed boss, inspector, maintenance foreman, gang boss are concerned with operating function. The third principle is elements of scientific management. The main constituent of the scientific management are work study involving work important and work measurement using the method and time study, standardization of the tools and equipments for workers, and improving the working condition, scientific selection, placement and training of the workers by the centralized personnel department. The fourth principle is bilateral mental revolution. Scientific management involves a complete mental change of employees towards their work, towards their fellow men and their employers. Mental revolution is also necessary on the part of management side, the foreman and superintendent, the owners and board of directions. The fifth principle is financial incentives. To encourage workers to give better performance, Taylor introduced the differential piece rate system. The second is administrative management. Administrative management emphasizes the manager and functions of management. The main objective of administrative management is to describe the management process and philosophy of management, in contradiction of scientific management, which deals mainly with the job and works at the individual level of scrutiny. Administrative management gives a universal theory of management. Now let us see the Henry Fayol administrative management. It was given during the year 1841 to 1925. Henry Fayol is also known as the father of the modern management. He was a popular industrialist and victorious manager. Fayol considered that good management practice fall into certain patterns that can be recognized and analyzed. From this basic perspective, he devised a blueprint for consistent policy of managers, one that retains much of its force to this day. His 5 functions manager was the plan, organize, command, coordinate and control. The principles of administrative management that are division of labor, authority and responsibility, discipline, unity of command, unity of direction, subordination of individual interest to the general interest, remuneration of the personals, centralization, scalar chain, order, equity, stability of tenure, initiative and esprit corps, that is union of strength. These 14 principles of management serve as general guidelines to the management process and management practice. His principles of management are described as: first is division of work. It is the principle of specialization which is detailed by economists as an important to efficiency of the utilization of labor. Fayol goes beyond the shop labor and apply the principle to all kind of work, managerial as well as technical. Second is authority and responsibility. In this principle, Fayol discovers authority and responsibility to be linked with the later, the consequence of the former and arising from the later. Third is discipline. This discipline denotes respect for agreements which are directed at achieving obedience, application, energy and outward mark of the respect. Fayol declares that the discipline requires good superiors at all levels, clear and fair agreement and judicious application of penalties. Unity of command is the fourth principle. In this principle, he states that employees should receive orders from one superior only. The fifth principle states the unity of direction, and it states that each group of activities having the same objective must have one head and one plan. As distinguished from the principle of unity of command, Fayol observes unity of direction as related to the functioning of personnels. The sixth principle is subordination of individual interest to general interest. Repeat, the sixth principle is subordination of individual interest to general interest. In any group, the interest of the group should be supersede of that individual. When these are found to differ, it is the function of the management to reconcile them. The seventh principle he gave was remuneration of personals. The Fayol recognizes that salary and methods of payment should be fair and give the utmost satisfaction to the worker and the boss. The eighth principle of Fayol is centralization, which refers to the extent to which the authority is concentrated and dispersed in an enterprise. Individual circumstances will determine the degree of decentralization that will give the best overall yield. The ninth principle given by the Fayol is the scalar chain, which states the chain of superiors from the highest to the lower ranks, and held that while it is an error of subordinate to depart needlessly from the lines of authority, the chain should be short circuited when scrupulous. Following it would be detrimental. The 10th principle is the order. Breaking this principle into the material order and social order, Fayol thinks it is the as simple edge of a place for everything and everything in its place. This is a principle of organization in the arrangement of the things and persons. Fayol's 11th principle is equity. In this, he perceives that one of the electing loyalty and devotion from the personnel by the combination of kindliness and justice in managers dealing with the subordinates. In the 12th principle, he describes the stability of tenure of the personnels, finding that such instability is both the cause and effect of bad management. Fayol indicates the dangers and cost of unnecessary turnover. The 13th principle of Fayol states the initiative is envisaged as a thinking out and execution of plan, since it is one of the keenest satisfaction for an intelligent man to experience. Fayol states managers to sacrifice personal vanity to permit subordinates to exercise it. In the 14th principle, the Fayol states the union is strength. It is an extension of the principle of unity of command. Fayol here emphasizes the need for the teamwork and importance of communication in obtaining it. The third type of management is the bureaucratic management. Let us discuss the bureaucratic management. It denotes to the perfect type of organization. The principle of bureaucracy include defined and specialized functions, use of legal authority, hierarchical form, written rules and procedures, technically trained bureaucrats, appointment to the positions based on the technical expertise, promotion based on the competence and defined career paths. The German sociologist Max Weber, recognized as the father of the modern sociology, who appraised the bureaucracy as the most logical and the structure for the big organization. With this observation in the business world, Weber summarized that earlier business firms were unproductively managed, with decision based on the personal relationship and faithfulness. He proposed that the form of organization called a bureaucracy, characterized by the division of labor, hierarchy, formalized by rules, impersonality, and selection and promotion of employees based on the ability, would lead to more well-organized management. Weber also argued that authoritative positions of manager in an organization should be based not on the tradition or personality, but the position held by the managers in the organizational hierarchy. Max Weber, during the period of 1864 to 1920, devised a theory of bureaucratic management that emphasized the need for firmly defined hierarchy governed by clearly defined regulations and line of authority. He considered the perfect organizations to be the bureaucracy whose activities and objectives were reasonably thought out and whose divisions of labors were defined. Weber also believed that the technical capability should be emphasized and that performance evaluation should be made completely by merit. Presently, it is considered that bureaucracies are huge impersonal organizations that put impersonal competence ahead of the human needs. Like the scientific management theorist, Weber sought to advance the performance of socially important organizations by making their operations predictable and productive. Although we now value innovation and flexibility as much as efficiency and predictability, Weber's model of bureaucratic management evidently advanced the development of the vast corporations such as Ford. The bureaucracy was a particular pattern of relationship for which the Weber saw great promise. Although bureaucracy had been successful for many companies, in the competitive global market of the 1990s, organizations such as General Electric and Xerox have adopted bureaucracy, throwing away the organization chart and replacing it with the ever-changing constellations of team, projects and alliances with the goal of unleashing employees' creativeness. Modern management approaches. Let us study the various approaches under the modern management. Let us first discuss about behavioral approach. Numerous theorists developed the behavioral approach of the management thought as they observed the weakness in the assumptions of the classical approach. The classical approach emphasized the efficiency, process and principles. Some management scholars considered that this thought ignored the important aspect of organizational life, particularly it related to the human behavior aspect. Therefore, the behavioral approach concentrated on understanding of the factors that affect the human behavior at work. This is improved and more matured description of human relation approach. The various theorists who have great contribution in developing the principle of management are McGregor, Abraham Maslow, Kurt Lewin, Mary Walker, René Slickert and behavioral scientists hold the classical approach as highly mechanistic, which finds to degrade the human spirit. They choose more flexible organizational structures and job built around the capabilities and talent of average employees. The behavioral approach has been based on the numerous principles. One is decision making, and it is done in the sub-optional manner because of the practical and the situational constraint on the human rationality of decision making. The behavior attach great weightage on participative and group decision making. Second is behavioral scientist promotes the self-direction and control instead of imposed control. Behavioral scientists believe the organization as a group of individuals with certain goals. They perceived that the democratic participative styles of leadership are enviable. The autocratic task-oriented styles may also be appropriate in certain situations. The behavioral scientist proposed that the different people react differently to the same situation. No two people are exactly similar, and manager should tailor his attempts to influence his people according to their needs. Sixth, they also identify that the organizational variance and change are predictable. The approach of Mary Parker in the year 1868 to 1933, they developed the classical structure of the classical school. However, she initiated many new elements, particularly in the area of human relations and organizational structure. In this, she introduced the trends that would be further developed by the talented behavioral and management science schools. Follett was persuaded that no one could become the whole person except as a member of group. Human beings grew through their relationships with others in the organization. In fact, she explained management as the art of getting things done through other people. She took for granted Taylor's statement that labor and management shared a common purpose as the member of the same organization, but she considered that the artificial differences between the managers and subordinate is vague in this natural partnership. She believed in the power of group, where individuals could combine their diverse talents into something bigger. Moreover, the Follett's holistic model of control took into account not just the individuals and the groups, but the effects of such environmental factors as politics, economics, and biography. Her model was a significant precursor of the idea that management meant more than just what was happening inside a particular organization. Gregor's theory of management has also suggested that there is a need to motivate the employees through the authoritative direction and employee self-control. He introduced the concept of theory X and theory Y. The theory X is a management theory focused more on classical management theory and assumed that workforce need high amount of supervision because they are inherently lazy. It presupposes that managers need to motivate through coercion and punishment. The theory Y is a management theory that assumes employees are determined, self-motivated, exercise self-control, and enjoy mental and physical work duties. The theory Y is in line with the behavioral management theories. Theory X and theory Y both relates to Maslow's hierarchical need in how human behavior and motivation is the main priority in the workplace if we want to maximize the output. The theory X states that the employees are inherently lazy and are irresponsible and will tend to avoid the work unless closely supervised and given incentives, contrast with the theory Y. The theory Y, where it states the employees are capable of being ambitious and self-motivated under the suitable conditions, which is again in contrast with the theory X. Now let us study the human relation approach. The human rationalist, who also denote to neoclassicist, focused as human aspect of business. These theorists emphasized that organization is a social system and the human factor is the most vital element within it. There are numerous basic principles of the human relation approach that are mentioned. First is decentralization. The concept of hierarchy employed by the classical management theorist is replaced with the idea that individual workers and functional areas should be given greater autonomy and decision-making power. This needs greater emphasis on lateral communication so that coordination of efforts and resources can occur. This communication occurs via informal communication channels rather than the formal hierarchical one. Second is participatory decision making. Decision making is participatory in the sense that those decision making on day-to-day basis include line workers not normally considered to be the management. The greater sovereignty afforded individual employees of the subsequent reduction in the height and the increased in the span of control of the organizational structure requires that they have the knowledge and ability to make their own decision and the communication skills to coordinate their efforts with others without a nearby supervisor. The third is concern for developing self-motivated employees. The importance of the system of the decentralized and autonomous decision making by the members of the organization necessitates that those members are extremely self-motivated. The goal of manager in such an organization is to design and implement organizational structures that reward such self-motivation and autonomy. Another is to negotiate working relationships with the subordinates that foster effective communication in both directions. Alton Mayo and the others conducted various experiments that were known as Hawthorne experiment and explored informal grouping, informal relationship, pattern of communication, pattern of internal leadership. Mayo is usually popular as father of human relations school. The human relations advocates the several factors after conducting Hawthorne experiments, which are mentioned as: first one, social system. The organization in general is a social system consists of numerous interacting parts. The social system establishes individual roles and established norms that may differ from those of the formal organization. Then is the social environment. The social climate of the job affects the workers and is also affected. Third is informal organization. The informal organization does also exist within the framework of the formal organization and it affects and is affected by the formal organization. The fourth is group dynamics. At the place of work, the workers often do not act or react as individual, but as a member of group. The group plays an important role in determining the attitudes and the performance of the individual workers. Fifth is informal leader. There is an appearance of the informal leadership as against the formal leadership, and the informal leader set and enforce group norms. The sixth is non-economic reward. Money is an encouraging element but not the only motivator of the human behavior. Man is diversely motivated and socio-psychological factors act as an important motivators. Behavioral science. It is a study of the organizational behavior emanated during the 1950s and 1960s. The behavioral science approach was a natural development of the human relation movement. It concentrated on applying conceptual and analytical tools to the problem of understanding and foresees behavior in the place of work. The behavioral science approach has contributed to the study of management through its elements of personality, attitudes, value, motivation, group behavior, leadership, communication, and conflict, and among the other issues. Now, let us see the another approach, contingency approach. This approach of management thought focuses on the management principles and concept that have no general and universal application under all conditions. John Woodward in the year 1950s has contributed to developing this approach in management. Contingency School states that the management is situational and the study of management recognizes the important variable in the situation. It distinguishes that all subsystem of the environment is interconnected and interrelated. By studying their relationship and their interrelationship, the management can find a resolution to the specific situation. Theorists stated that there is no effective way of doing the things under all business conditions. Methods and techniques which are extremely effective in one situation may not give the same result in another situation. The quantitative approach of management thought states and aimed at enhancing the process of decision making through the use of quantitative techniques. It is evolved from the principles of scientific management. The management science, which is popularly known as operation research, is also known to utilize the mathematical and the statistical approaches to resolve the management issues. It was developed during the World War II as strategists attempted to apply scientific knowledge and methods to intricate troubles of war. The industry started to apply management science after this war. The introduction of the computer technology made many management science tools and concepts more practical for the industry. The another approach in this was production and operation management. W. Edwards Deming exercised a great influence in developing contemporary ideas to improve the productivity and quality. Major areas of studies were operation management, which include the capacity planning, facilities, location, facilities layout, material requirement planning, scheduling, purchasing and inventory control, quality control, the computer integrated manufacturing, just-in-time inventory system and flexible manufacturing systems. Now let us see the system approach of management thought. The system approach deals with the thoroughly understanding of organization as an open system that converts input into output. The system approach had a great impact on the management thought in the year 1960s. During this period, thinking about the managing practices allowed the managers to relate different specialities and the parts of the company to another, as well as to the external environmental factors. The system approach focuses on the organization as a whole, its communication with the environment, and its need to achieve the equilibrium. The system approach, as we can see in this figure, that there is input which is processed and the output is given. From the output, we take the feedback and give into the input, and the external environment affects both input as well as the output. Students, now let us summarize that there are important theories given in the management, and each theory has a distinct role to the knowledge of what managers do. Management is an interdisciplinary and global field that has been developed in parts over the years. Numerous approaches to the management theory developed that include the universal process approach, the operational approach, the behavioral approach, the system approach, contingency approach and others. And the theorists like Taylor, Adam Smith, Henry Fayol, Mayo and others have contributed towards the development of these management concepts. The classical management approach had three major categories that include scientific management, administrative theory and bureaucratic management. Scientific management highlighted the scientific study of work with methods to improve the work efficiency. Thank you.